You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and it's Bring Your Son to Work Day. So we have Keenan with us joining. My co-host Doug is off enjoying a very much deserved vacation. He is not that far away from me and not that far away from where Keenan was just vacationing himself. I am reporting live from the bustling metropolis that is Winona, Minnesota. So wonderful to have you with us this week, Keenan, filling in. I get a lot of positive feedback when people say that you fill in for one of us. I tell them that clearly they've been doing the drugs before they watch the show. But it's always lovely to have you, Keenan. You bring a very fresh attitude and fresh perspective to things, and you are a very bright guy. So welcome, Keenan, to the Joan Rivers to Doug's Johnny Carson.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I always love getting to learn from you guys, and it's an opportunity to get to learn some new things when I get to fill in on the show. And yeah, it definitely seems like a Midwest summer, just getting back from those states myself. But let's go ahead and dive in here. Topic number one I wanted to share today was about the Panama Canal. I know you and Doug have talked about this in episodes past. However, it seems to be kind of out of the consciousness for most people that I'm hearing now, just because there's so much other things, news happenings in economics and politics, and especially trade. But the Panama Canal is really important for global trade, and they have been facing rain and drought and infrastructure issues and ownership challenges. And so the news I saw just this week is that the Panama president seeks support for vital Rio Indio water project. And so this ties back into the story you guys have been talking about for a while now, but there's been less rain than normal. Ships are bigger than ever. There's more ships. We have maybe a little bit of downturn right now with trade uncertainties, but the overall trend is for more people to try to want to use these canals. And then when we have uncertainty or rate limiting things that are leaving ships out, waiting longer times, more expense, uncertainty of ownership, or potential geopolitical things, that can exacerbate the uncertainty. So just wanted to bring back up Panama and the importance of water in order to make that canal work.
The canal there's so much we take for granted, Keenan. Like we take so much for granted when it comes to logistics. I think we've gotten kind of used to it. It's sort of like you go to the grocery store and you pick up that pound of hamburger. You don't really think about what went into raising the cattle, teaching the farmer how to actually farm, processing it, getting it on a truck, keeping it cold. I mean, all the work that goes into it, right? And with regards to ocean transportation, it's very recently, because we had those problems with the Panama Canal. We're having problems right now with the Red Sea and the Suez. I think we're getting a little more to it, but this is a very delicate and, I'll go so far as to say volatile area of the world because of climate changes that have been happening. Either there wasn't enough water, or there was too much water. It's been a pretty rough year and a half, 2 years for that part of the world. I've transited the canal. It was fascinating and incredible, but not nearly as high tech as I thought it would be. And we've grown to appreciate its need. Now, the problem with the canal is it's not big enough for some of these larger ships. And I think that that's what might end up hurting their international call for help here, is the Chinese generally benefit from larger spaces, more water, access to it. It's the smaller size ships that are owned by the Korean carriers, the ones that are owned by the European carriers, the ones that are owned by U.S. carriers, the U.S. Navy, that really do benefit the most from that part of the world. I think it might hamstring their call for international help, buddy. But all the same, I imagine help will come and show up on the way. Did you read anything at all have you seen anything at all about what the initial response has been?
Need the support not only the users, but also the international community. I have not seen the response. Was using Grok today and doing some research, and it seems like Grok has had some issues this week and has been borked a little bit. But it seems like it's following similar appeals, kind of emphasizing the urgency of building the reservoir. It's one of those things that I have not seen people jumping onto it, but it is pretty critical. So some of the other stats, I guess, that came out of the let's see here. Let's back up. It seems like there's been increasing in freight costs. So even as from what I've been seeing elsewhere, international overall tonnage and shipping stuff is down, but the rates are going up. And if there's no water, or it's not going to work well for international situations, then it may be problematic. So
Maybe
not
it's
sure.
definitely going to be problematic.
Definitely problematic. And it's one of those that I think us, we do a lot of U.S. domestic type shipping, but we do international. And so it's an area that I think is important and I would like to learn more about. I've heard some people, I'm not sure if you're aware of the book by David McCullough, The Path Between the Seas, but it's kind of about the construction of the Panama Canal, which is a whole section of history that I don't know, but might tie into what you were saying. It's not all that high tech because it was built kind of a while ago and has been critical ever since then.
Well, here's a fun fact, Keenan. The guy that did baseball and did all those documentaries, why can't I remember his name? He's a big deal. He's a very big deal. Anyway, he had thought about doing one about the Panama Canal. Like, it's on his list of documentaries to do, but he's just gone down this
Ken Burns.
Ken Burns, that's it.
There we go.
But he's down this rabbit hole right now of the American Revolution, I guess.
Yes.
And so he's thinking it's going to take him like a decade to come up with the next one. American Revolution and the years leading up to the American Revolution, and questions about whether or not that really is American history. But it was us that built it. It was us that put the money into it. I think it's very much between, the Monroe Doctrine and the rest of what we consider to be Western Hemisphere trade. I think it'd be a fascinating thing to watch. Also, Keenan, I've decided that when it's you co-hosting, we're going to call this the Beard Boys Show. The Beard Boys this week. Global Trade This Week with the Beard Boys. Well, my topic is a little less interesting because we're sick and tired of talking about it. But it's my life. This week, unfortunately, there was another shaking of the Etch-a-Sketch by Washington regarding trade. The first thing that happened, we were all very excited about, was this Vietnamese deal that was reported. I did a webinar about it yesterday. This Vietnamese deal is wonderful to hear, but it's so undetailed about what we've gotten back. So a 20% on practically everything, then a 40% on stuff coming in from Vietnam that isn't made in Vietnam. It's transshipped. All right, cool. Well, if you're not really into international trade, you're like, great. So if you send something from China into Vietnam and send it to America, yeah, okay, that's obvious. But think about this. Every free trade agreement has something we call a regional value quantity or regional value content requirement. So for NAFTA, as an example, you got 50, 60%. It really depends on if it's automotive or not. So are we going to say that if a product is made entirely of Chinese components, which I got to break it to people, is a lot of the stuff that comes from Vietnam, or it's coming from other parts of Southeast Asia, and it doesn't reach a certain percentage of 60, 70%, will it be subject to that 40% tariff? We don't know. There is no further detail coming out of our friends from Vietnam or Washington. We're not hearing anything. Added to that frustration, the second half of my talk today is the letters that went out. So I don't remember the last time I got a letter from a friend, but the letters were certainly not friendly that left Washington on Monday at 12 o'clock that apparently went to 18 nations saying our talks have stalled or our talks never happened. And rather than waste everybody's time, here's your new tariff. Now, there are two particular countries, South Africa and South Korea, which we really have been talking to. And Japan, pardon me, three, that we really have been talking to, that walked away from this with massive new tariffs. We don't know everything that was in all the letters. A couple of them are coming out. I know I saw Singapore's today, Thailand's as well. So there are bits and pieces of information that are coming out of this, but the negotiation is practically over with. And they've said the pause will continue till August 1st. All right, cool. Well, on August 1st, does that mean that if I have goods that have been on the water, so they left on July the 20th, but they get in on August the 6th, does that mean I have to pay the tariffs because they were on the water? We don't know. And my inbox is stuffed with people, well-meaning people with a big question. is my stuff going to be hit with tariffs? And really, the point I'm trying to make with all this, Keenan, is the lack of credible guidance and insight. They're great at the shock and awe, but they need to understand that they are massively impacting supply chains and markets. And it would be much more responsible to give people direction rather than just causing all this chaos.
100%. Yeah. If you would be able to have where you're trying to get people to go and push it that way with a little more clarity, maybe he'd have more buy-in, or the U.S. Trade Administration at writ large, all the negotiators. Uncertainty is very expensive, right? I think that's maybe why we're seeing certain shifts in supply chains of people not shipping things, or we were expecting a certain amount of maintenance and turnarounds and power generation, oil refineries, those sorts of things. Uncertainty is expensive, and people just push stuff off until, well, maybe it'll be more certain next year. That type of stuff, which can add up and impact a lot of industries. That's interesting about the origin percentages, and it's not really clear, let alone the dates. And I mean, we're hearing new dates, right? I've heard August 1st, and I've also heard China August 12th.
Right.
But then, what does that mean on the water, landed? All those sorts of things aren't really clear.
Yeah, for those of you listening, I just threw my hands up. We don't know. We absolutely don't know. That's another comment I get too, Keenan, is people say, "Remember, I'm listening, not watching." So I don't get all the nuance of the faces and the silly things you do. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lots of people are out there in their cars or just listening. So good enunciation of that. Well,
so Keenan, I'm going to let you announce halftime, right? This is a gift from Doug. Doug loves halftime. I'm letting you announce it.
Well, Doug is out on assignment. I believe he might have said Wisconsin.
That's correct.
And that goes into my first topic here. Halftime, brought to you by Cap Logistics. My first question to you, similarities, differences, what do you prefer, Minnesota or Wisconsin, and why?
Keenan, this is such a softball for me. So I lived in Minnesota for a period of time, and it was actually a pretty good period of time. And there's a number of factors that ruined Minnesota for me. So my first winter here, my ex-wife, because she has a brain in her head, packed up everything and went back home and took my daughter with her. I wish I could have gone with her. But I spent my first winter here, kind of new to the area and alone. And I didn't realize that there was all of these things happening at wintertime in this part of the Midwest, which for those of you who don't know is brutally, I mean, it'll kill you kind of cold. It is pretty awful in Wisconsin and Minnesota, particularly Minnesota. So it was just terrible. I have a very awful relationship that originated in this state, so that doesn't help either. But it was more for me being a dyed-in-the-wool East Coast guy, that people were just way too nice to me. And I get it, right? It's part of the whole shtick, the Midwest nice. There's a story about me. I would go to the same Quick Stop every morning on my way to the office, and I grab a couple Diet Cokes. And the guy would try to talk to me. "Oh, hey, how's it going?" "Fine." "Going on your way to work?" Yeah. "All right. In here every day. You should probably just grab a bunch and leave them." "Uh-huh." And I would just leave. After about a month of this and going through a divorce, I finally snapped on this guy. And I said, "I don't want to talk to you. This is a transactional relationship. I bring the cans of soda to the counter. You take my money. We don't have to talk. Okay? It's all good." And that guy hated me for the rest of my life living in Minnetonka. Wisconsin, sorry?
I believe that, yeah.
Yeah. I learned that the worst thing you could do to a Minnesotan is when they say good morning to you, don't say anything back. Because they're going to spend the rest of the day saying, "Oh my God, what did I do to make Pete angry at me?" And I wasn't angry. I just wanted to mess with him. Why do I like Wisconsin more than Minnesota? Very simply put, I just drove here from Chicago, okay? All I saw were signs for cheese and fireworks. Two of my favorite things. Also, it's not Minnesota, okay? I'll just say it. I have a pre-existing condition that just disallows me to like this state. Now, all that being said, some very dear friends of mine live here. Very, very wonderful, wonderful people that live in this state. They do anything for you. Very sweet, very kind people. And I think that comes from generations of having to live through winters that if you were the jerk in town, you were going to die. So I
Yeah.
think that's really where it comes from. So that's it for me, buddy. What about you? What's your perspective?
I think you're right. I think in Minnesota, with the cold and the history there, it's a little closer to the evolutionary pressure of how being ostracized from the group leads to death. So you kind of have that collaborative. Sometimes it's rural, but even Minnetonka's not all that rural, or we have
No.
cities in Minnesota. Um, yeah, you definitely have that collaboration drive, or the talking. Talking but not facing each other, kind of off in the distance. Lots of weather just to like check in. All right, cool, cool. But the weather is deadly. I had to change a tire in Minnesota in negative 30-degree weather before wind chill, and so I had gloves, but then I'm like wrapping extra like fabric and things around my gloves in order to change this tire on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Um, so I also have more history in Minnesota. Grew up camping there on the North Shore, so I love the Boundary Waters, the North Shore. I just got back from mountain biking in Duluth. Great trails, lots more oxygen than Colorado, so it makes me feel like I'm a much better mountain biker than I normally feel like I am out here in Colorado. Um, but
Mm,
there's something alluring to me about Wisconsin. One, I love the cheese. It seems more like a frontier to me. Like when I was in college in Minnesota, they were the ones who sold alcohol on Sundays, or if you wanted to go skydive, you go across the border into Wisconsin. Like that kind of seems where like the American dream, freedom is still alive. And I'm not an expert, but I've heard the taxes are lower in Wisconsin, so it seems like that's kind of places where people are creating their homesteads or future. But both of them have great mountain biking, great people, great food, great culture. Yeah, definitely a Midwest, North Midwest summer. All three of us being there pretty much the same time. Kind of wild.
yeah, it's crazy. Huh? It is kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Well, my halftime's a little bit different. So I travel a great deal. And I am shocked every month when I do my expenses at how often I order from Uber Eats. So I'm not a DoorDash guy, Uber Eats guy. And there have been times, Keenan, where I could have just gotten into my rental car and drove a couple of miles and picked something up, but I just order it. And this has bled into my personal life when I'm home in Virginia. I am more than happy to just have groceries delivered, have everything delivered. So it's a two-parter, Keenan. First, are you a guy that has stuff delivered often, like foodstuffs, groceries? And then second of all, do you think it's a good thing? Do you think that it's a good thing to have it this easy to have a cheesesteak delivered to your hotel room at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Well, that complicates it because I love cheesesteaks, but no, I am not someone who orders delivery food. I think I probably ordered delivery food more before the Uber Eats and all that Dash era type stuff. I get delivery pizza, but no. I It could probably help people in certain areas and different things. I'm imagining like a Tokyo situation. Cool. Some like bike delivered ramen. That sounds great. But a bunch of people putting things in cars. I've just heard horror stories of, you know, the drivers don't like how it makes their car smell. So they just spray like perfume, whatever deodorizer into people's bags of food, and then like you're eating that. So it's just like the chain of custody. It's already processed food. It takes a little bit longer. I'm sure some setups are fast and fresh and delicious, but it's already like kind of commoditized food products, and then you're like making it wait, or going into some unknown individual's hands that may or may not spray it with Febreze. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm someone has given me gift cards, and I don't even use it. Like I don't use the services.
Well, as a guy that orders a lot of really funky Indian and Thai food, I feel bad for whoever is driving the car when I order it, and the inconsistency of them screwing up. Right, it just
Mm.
I'm in a hotel. Put a knife and a fork in there. Take it, and I tell you in the instructions the amount of times that I don't get what I ordered, and there's nothing they'll do. They just say, "Well, here's your refund, bro. I'm sitting here eating, super hot chicken vindaloo, and I've got no Diet Cokes. All right, kick rocks. I hate all of you." And,
Yeah.
and I get it, right? I can't imagine what doing that service must be like. Driving your car around, picking people's crap up, dropping it off. I'm sure it's not a fun job. Get it right. Like Joe Pesci said, they F you at the drive through. Well, they're Fing me on my Uber Eats lately, bud. So I don't know. I love it. It's easy for me. but it's gotten me to the point now where I just buy more groceries and cook for myself. I don't want to deal with those people.
Yeah, I definitely buy more and cook for myself. And obviously, if you're traveling, that's a different situation. And I agree, you'd want them to do it right or don't do it at all. And I
Mm,
almost feel like with my limited experience, I get better service when it's integrated with a specific bao bun kitchen or something, and they do it themselves. It
right.
seems to be more ownership and a better service than when you like pass off to the intermediaries and there's a little Chick-fil-A over there and there's a little Wendy's over here and whatever, and all that. It just seems like it's not the way to eat.
I agree. I agree. All right. Well, that was halftime from our friends at Cap Logistics. Doug is going to hate this halftime, I'm sure. He's going to listen to it on some lake somewhere and just be seething about the topics that we talked about. We'll probably hear about it during the pre-show next week. But do check out caplogistics.com. That's Keenan's employer. I'm sure they would appreciate that. And with that, we'll get on to the next topic. What is it, Keenan?
All right. So with all the news on trade deals, there's been a lot of attention with the U.S. This next topic, I wanted to talk about the EU and Mercosur trade deal. Mercosur, yeah, thank you. Trade deal facing collapse with the agricultural dispute. So I did fact check Grok on this, but yeah, it looks like France and Poland are having some of their constituents, farmers and other related industries, not wanting to agree to the current terms with the South American exporters, which is critical for the South American exporters. So maybe bringing up the key points about this one and then kind of the more broad trend of this. So Brazil and Argentina facing $10 billion in export losses if the deal fails. So it's the importance of deals, right? But then also, you have all these competing interests. And if protectionism's back on the table, well, we want protectionism. Well, we want protectionism. Well, we want to export. Well, we don't want you to export. There's going to be a lot of that. So I guess both the specific topic is on this particular trade deal, but then also in a world now where there's less one set of rules for everybody all over the place, and America making more bilateral hub and spoke type trade deal models, are there going to be more groups like this kind of chunking EU with South America and the Asia and like different blocks going around, and will they be successful, or are there going to be protectionist issues like that, or is this just a temporary thing? They'll figure it out eventually.
Well, these blocks negotiating with each other, Keenan, it's just a more efficient way to handle it, right? You come to an agreement internally about what you're willing to give and take, and then you negotiate as a block rather than these bilateral agreements, which every little piece of it is being negotiated with an individual country. And also, there's the leverage side of it. If you're a large portion of South America, or Agora, yeah, the one in Africa, same thing. You can negotiate these deals with a lot more leverage and be able to make a bigger deal with what's
Yep.
going on, hopefully more lasting. The the agriculture one, it's so fascinating to me. Every country wants food independence. We don't want to have to rely on anyone else. And we're very fortunate in North America, in Mexico, Canada, and the US. We do a very good job of making our own food, making it available. It's not the point, not the way in the rest of the world. China consistently has a difficult time creating enough calories for their people to consume. And they're a massive importer of agriculture because they're really focused on other parts of their economy. I mean, we literally in the U.S. Chinese agreement, we sold China rice, which used to be like a joke. He's such a good salesman; he could sell China rice.
So
Guess what?
rice in China. Yeah.
They they need all the rice they can get right now in
Wow, I
China.
didn't know that.
So selling them the basmati, Texas basmati, Louisiana basmati that comes out of our country is a pretty big deal. Now, if we're exporting that, it's going to mean scarcity for domestic rice. Fortunately, some fabulous rice companies that do a very good job of importing inexpensive rice to the US, where we pay a premium dollar for it, because to us, it doesn't seem like it's that much money. But that kind of price in other nations would be absurd for such a staple of what they eat every day. And then there's also the food safety piece of it. We've talked about this many times on the show. There are whole swaths of the planet that will not import certain food stuff from America because of our agri-science, whether that's hormones or chemicals or whatever it is that we do, genetic engineering. They don't appreciate that coming into their world. So you have the food security side and the food safety side, and those two things together come together as a huge deal that most consumers, wherever you are in the world, don't really think about. They want cheap eggs. They want cheap staples of their diet, and they don't really care where it comes from because their lifespan is small. But these deals, when you look at them on the face of them, they're long lasting. USMCA, which used to be NAFTA, we're coming up on, what is it now? 33 years, I believe, since it's been in place. And you can see how agriculture has shifted from the Sun Belt, from parts of the United States into Mexico. You can see where we are now rather dependent on them for a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. They can make it cheaper and at the same quality that we can. It's a big deal, and people need to pay attention to it if you want to understand the broader impacts of the trade agreements and what's behind
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting having the trade offs in economics. There's always the trade offs, right, of having the food security, but then also the food safety. And I often think of the EU being ahead of the US as far as food safety. Even though there's good innovation in what we're doing with certain genetic modifications or certain things, there's also critiques of why someone might not want that in their food. Um, yeah, that's fascinating. We're fortunate to be in America. I know driving back from the Midwest, Illinois, Chicago, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, there's a lot of corn. I just drove
it.
past a lot of corn in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. What I loved about driving through Wisconsin today was the diversity of farming, of agriculture.
Yeah, they grow trees there.
So yeah, there was. It was not just like driving, like you said, through Iowa or Minnesota,
Right.
where it's an endless sea of corn. It was a lot more to it. And not to say that Minnesota doesn't have a diverse agricultural base; they certainly do, but it's not as visible when you're driving the major highways of that state. All right. Well, that brings me to my final topic, which I think is very insightful. And people need to listen to this because one of the questions I always get is why is this taking so long? Why is this so hard for us to do? It's simple. First of all, trade deals are supposed to take a very long time to accomplish. They do. I mean, 10 years, 5 years. They don't happen in 90 days. That's just not how this stuff works. And then, second of all, the negotiating class of U.S. political infrastructure was summarily fired in the beginning of the Trump administration. They were all let go. So these people that had 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience negotiating trade deals, who are dealing with people in their counterpart countries with 10, 20, 30, 40 years of negotiation experience, they're gone. It's one of the reasons that Lighthizer didn't take the job to come be the USTR again for Trump. He's like, so you're going to get rid of everybody that I can depend on, all my undersecretaries, all the people that do this work, and I've got to use this new crop of folks that have a totally different way of looking at negotiations, and I might not agree with that way. No, I'm out. So, and that's why his number two, his protege, Jameson Greer, took the job. He's like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'm young. I'll put the work in. But we're having this problem because the people from the U.S. side are negotiating with very old school, very stated folks that have done this a certain way for a long time. We're not. So everything that we're pushing and how we're pushing it is completely alien to the process. Will this be the new way that it happens going forward? Oh, dear God, I pray it's not. But it's been fascinating from an purely academic perspective to see what's gone on these past few months. But it's been absolute bedlam from the perspective of someone who deals with importers every day. So maybe as someone who really isn't a big fan of government, maybe there's something to be said for keeping folks on with that institutional knowledge when you're going to do something so big as this.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the tech industry, right? Where they'll have massive layoffs, and then like, oh, talent goes elsewhere, and all of a sudden, like, oh, your inside secrets are somewhere else, or then like, oh, now it's booming again. We need to hire them, but they don't exist, or they're all gone, and there's costs associated to that. And it's a good point you bring up about the time scales. People asking why is this taking so long because it's painful and uncertain right now. Rightly feel it, but yeah, compared to how these deals are normally done, this is much faster, and there may be some things broken along the way or missed or just disagreements. And so, yeah, although there's been some signs of the optimism of China and UK and different countries, but there's also now signs of, oh, this isn't actually done yet. And so if it's not done, you can't count the chickens.
It's true. And you brought up a great point, Keenan. So think about it. In the tech industry, if you and I are like big time innovators and we get whacked, we're going to go to work for another tech company. If you're a negotiator that's been dealing with a particular region of the world and you get let go in the US, you've got very limited places to work. But let me tell you, it pays super well to consult for the Chinese as a U.S. former trade negotiator, or
Hmm.
negotiate for the Europeans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've just built this infrastructure to add further hurdles to getting these things done because they can be paid obnoxious amounts of money to be part of the opposition's work now.
Fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, with
Lots
that,
to chew on there.
yeah, with that, that's going to do it for our topics in halftime. And Keenan, I'm going to give you the honor of closing out the show.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us on this, the 201st episode of Global Trade This Week. Thanks for joining us, and catch us again next time. Doug should be back from the Midwest, and we'll have more insights on transportation, trade, economics, politics, things happening around the world that could be impacting you and your business. So thanks. Catch you next time.
Thanks, buddy.